Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sean Smith, and holiday season is upon us. Happiness, joy, all that good stuff is in the air. And along with that comes the feeling of thanks. And I am very thankful for everyone who has joined us on the journey that has been Chasing Your Experience. Season 2 is coming to an end today with this episode, which means after the start of the new year, we'll be into season number 3. 3 years that Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience has been published, I guess you could say, or has been active as a podcast, and looking to add a few more of those. So season 2 has been quite the adventure for us as we've changed format. We've went from an audio only podcast to a video podcast, and we've had a plethora of guests on this year. So it's been a big growth year for us. And I got to admit, I joined the TikTok as much as I tried to avoid it. I joined it and it's actually doing pretty well there. So I've had my reservations with TikTok because of, well, it's very anti-hunting, and it seems like it's gotten a little better, but still not to where I think it needs to be. Because unfortunately, I don't think that they're smart enough to distinguish the difference between a legal hunting action and an illegal abuse of an animal. So still working on that. Anyways, but with that being said, I'm thankful for all of you, and I'm thankful for our guests. And since it's the holiday season, I might as well just get this out. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break. So it won't be a new episode for season 3 will not air until after the first of the year. You might be looking at a couple week period of no episodes. But I promise you, we are working on adding new guests to the list. We are making sure that this season, or season 3, is going to be just as big as season 2, if not better. And we are looking forward to more growth for the podcast. So with that being said, let's talk about season 2 for a minute, because this episode is basically going to be just a compilation of our episodes that we recorded for season 2. And, they all started in Ashland, Ohio at the Buckeye Big Buck Club banquet, where we did a live record there. And it morphed from there into the video podcast because we recorded a handful of episodes with a couple of the new inductees into the Buckeye Big Buck Club and their stories of their qualifying bucks. Talked to a couple of the board members, and that was all strictly audio only. And one of those episodes was also with the deer program administrator, who is now retired, but is Mike Tonkovich. That was a great episode. A lot of great information in that one. But as soon as we were done with that series, we recorded a very special podcast because it happened to fall. It was published in the spring, which happens to be prime tick season. We got to talk to Dr. Risa Pesapane of The Ohio State University. She's actually more formally or informally known as the Tick Lady. And we had a great conversation about ticks here in Ohio, some emergent ticks, and also the diseases that they spread. And I feel very blessed to have the guests that I've had on the podcast so far. And that's about the time that we transitioned to the video. And I couldn't think of a better guest to be my first video guest than the scrape doctor himself, James Holm. And we recorded a 5-part series with James that started with the why of mock scrapes and all the way to the successes of the mock scrape system, or I should say the scrape doctor system. And it was during that recording that James was gracious enough to give us a discount code at scrapedoctor.com, which is Country Fried 10 spelled with a K. So if you're looking to get in the mock scrape game, head over to scrapedoctor.com. Use that code Country Fried 10 and save yourself 10% on your purchase. If you're still here, make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast as well. But so we recorded that series. And then in between, I did a few episodes between the co-host Sam out in Colorado, and we had several things to talk about. We had to talk about CJ Alexander and wolves and all kinds of stuff to talk about. We also had another repeat guest, Justin Ross from Archery Hike, was back on the podcast because it was about this time that the public land grab was going on, and Justin is a big user of public land for his travels and camping and hiking and hunting. And I couldn't think of a better person to be on the podcast to talk a little bit about that. And of course, his archery hike event. And we also had another special guest come on. His name is Adam Bingham. He is an acquaintance or part of the Scrape Doctor system or Scrape Doctor family. He came on to share his story of a great Ohio whitetail buck that he had harvested. And it all started, well, he's had some intel of this buck for some while, for some time, but the buck would always disappear. And then he finally got one photo of this buck back on his property on a poison ivy from the Scrape Doctor. And he went out almost the next day and was successful in stalking on that deer and harvesting that deer. And it was a story that James told, and I thought it was very fitting to bring Adam aboard to the podcast and let him tell his story from start to finish. Amazing podcast. We also had another great guest on. His name is Tony Bennett. He's another Michigander, and he is a full-time firefighter, and he runs a side hustle of a food plot company that is called Red Light Food Plot Seed Company. Him and I are still in the process of finishing up our series together, but the first 3 episodes aired for season 2, where we took you from a generalized overview to the micro plots, then to the larger, more destination plots. And we've got 2 more to go for you guys. 2 more to go. So make sure you stay tuned for season 3 for those episodes to drop so you can finish out that whole series with us. But that's a lot. That's a lot to throw out there. And instead of this being just an episode of me sitting here talking to you guys, my cool little elf hat. Anyways, so what we're going to do for this episode is we're going to just throw in some clips from season 2. Just random clips just to kind of, touch base on some of the highlights of season 2 for you guys. And so let's start off where it all started for season 2. And that is in Ashland, Ohio at the Buckeye Big Buck Club banquet. This clip is from the conversation I had with 2 of the board members, Jim and JR, as the Buckeye Big Buck Club has been in operation for decades, not months, not weeks, not years, but decades. And this discussion is them explaining the trends that they're seeing in hunting today that has become popular over the last couple of years. Let's hear from Jim and JR.
So what are some of the trends you guys see? We'll touch on those real quick. What are some of the trends you see shifting that, you're seeing more of this or less of this, or, what are some things you notice that are coming in, or, whether it's the hunter, the demographic of the hunter, or the implements that are used? What are some of the trends you see?
Well, the implementing of the straight wall cartridge rifles has been a dramatic shift in weapons that are used in the state. Just 10 years ago, shotguns were by far the largest implement used for hunting, but now the straight wall cartridges have surpassed them.
Yeah.
So that has a big impact on it. The accuracy of those weapons has probably made the sport even more ethical over the years.
I agree with that 100%. I agree.
So our gear that we're using, before today we can set out in pouring rain and stay dry as a bone and stay warm. And so talking about the weapons, there's so many things today that we have, Gore-Tex and crossbows, these Raven crossbows and the 10 points, and that are incredibly accurate, just in general, we are just more efficient as a hunter. We just absolutely are. And some people, and we were talking about the people that are separate, the crossbow guys and the compound guys, and you know how I feel about that. But nonetheless, whatever gets him in the woods, whatever helps with aiding and getting a deer or the deer, or getting a kid out, whatever it is, right, we're going to promote that, right?
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, some of the trends is how efficient we are today versus just 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Trail cameras, but and lots of people that I have talked through over the past 10 years would say, okay, well, what's the end point? What's the end game? Okay, I can't answer that, but what I can say is this. We have tools, and the drone, we could talk about the drone that's a whole nother podcast, right?
That it is.
Yep. And so cellular cameras, that's a whole nother podcast. So all of these things that we have available to us, okay, and none of us can speak for the general population, but who we can speak for is I can speak for myself, and I can speak for my daughter and my dad and my son and my wife. I can speak on behalf of those people that are, very, 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 very close. And so I don't care if you use whatever you use. We hunt the way that we want to hunt. And
but there are a lot of innovations out there that has changed how hunting in Ohio or hunting in the nation is strictly done. One of those innovations, of course, is a straight wall cartridge. That's what we talked about. It's starting to take over as like number one firearm implement. So far, though, crossbows are the number one implement of take in Ohio. Archery in itself is the largest category of implements used. So that includes crossbows, longbows, compound bows, trad bows, whatever you call them, right? Vertical bows, crossbows, whatever. It includes all those. Firearms, of course, is number two, but inside of that archery category is crossbows, which is the total number one. The number two implement in the state is straight wall cartridges. So yes, they are changing the dynamic of hunting. And there's a few other things we touched on in there, but those could be just podcast episodes on their own. So from there, we brought Trisha onto the show, and Trisha has an amazing story of a 200 plus inch deer that she had shot, and it's like her third year hunting. It's like her second or third buck, man. And this is a deer they've been watching, and I got to sit down with Trisha and her husband and her brother and hear this story as it unfolded. And I gotta say, her husband had been hunting that deer. I gotta say, man, he took a slice of humble pie and was very happy for Trisha. She harvested this deer that they called Brutus. And so let's give Trisha her opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about the day that she harvested Brutus.
So tell me, leading up to the hunt, leading up to that day, what, from your perspective, kind of give me this story.
Well, I pulled up to the end of the lane, got my gear on, took off down the lane, got all the way back to the blind, realized I left my arrows on the back of the truck. So I had to walk all the way back up. And I was like, this is going to be a horrible hunt.
Been there before.
This is going to be a horrible hunt, but I'm already here. I might as well go sit. And I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there. And like he said, that small one came in. And I always text him. I was like, I got a 6-point in front of me. Should I shoot? And I get the same answer every time. It's your tag, if that's what you feel comfortable with. And I probably contemplated for a good 40 minutes whether or not to shoot that deer. And I put my phone down. I'm sitting there, and to the right, behind the tree line, I see this massive body, and I'm like, oh, I think that's Brutus. I grab my binoculars. I'm looking. Like, oh my gosh, it's Brutus. I'm like freaking out. I threw my binoculars down. I'm getting my bow up on the stand, and I'm ready. And where we had previously made the shooting lane wider, he stopped right in front of it, stood there. A doe came up, stood there with him for, I don't know, a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
She actually came back in through the lane that we made. He surpassed it and walked past, came back in through the trees, and came in from my left.
You're right-handed.
Yes.
That might help with your shot a little bit then, being right-handed, so you can turn that way. Yeah.
He would take like 3 steps and stop. And all I could hear was like he would just bend his rack every which way, hitting every branch coming through. And he would take another 3 steps and stop. And I know when we made that lane, there's a tree. There's 2 trees wide enough where you can get a shot through them. And I set my scope up right there, and I waited for him to hit that spot.
How far was he?
18 yards.
Doesn't get better than that. So
Yes.
all right. So now you got him in your scope. He's 18 yards.
Mm-hmm.
What's going through your mind?
I'm shaking. I'm breathing. I shoved my face mask in my mouth so I wouldn't breathe so loud. And all I could think in my head was, Trisha, do not screw this up. I will never hear the end of it. Do not screw it up.
So that's going to bring us to the Twig family tree. This was an amazing story of a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 kids, and all 4 of them harvested a dandy buck back in 2023. And now, while the episode itself focused a lot on the harvest of those deer, 2 of them were qualifiers into the Buckeye Big Buck Club, 2 of them were not. But when they set me up right next to this big spread of all 4 of these bucks. So I got to sit and look at these bucks like the entire day that I was there. And of course, we had to bring the twigs on. And a lot of us are parents or mentors in this space of hunting or outdoor recreation. And I was curious because both of the Twig kids were totally bought into hunting, his daughter and son both. And I had to ask him, I said, from father to father, what's the secret? I mean, you figured it out. Apparently, what's the secret? And this is what this clip is him explaining to me what the secret sauce that worked for his family was.
Hey, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Is to capture those emotions and everything. So as a father myself, I want to know what's the secret to get them off the screens and into the woods.
The biggest thing is it's got to be fun. And it's got to be on their time. That you can't force them in no means, but you got to give them a little screen time a little bit before the action. Get them in, make a deal with them. Hey, we're going to get in, settled in. We're going to get a little bit of tablet time, and then when it gets to business, we're cutting. We want your eyes to adjust. Obviously, a lot of the movement is towards the end of the night, or the end of the day. So you want their eyes to adjust. That's a big thing with, is the transition from going to that screen to the darker coming in, especially because we really focus on blind hunting for the kids. It's a safety thing. You don't want kids up when they're young like that to be in a tree stand, which he has been, but it's tough.
The movement, hiding the
to worry
movement.
to worry about all that. The whitetails, nose, eyes are just incredible, and you got to get close, especially with archery equipment. So it's a tough thing Fisher handles it very well when it comes to not seeing anything. He always very confident the next time. Hey, Dad, next is going to happen next time. It's going to happen next time. And that was an asset that he really helped Dad come a long way, because I'm wanting it so bad for them to have the experience, and it's stressful. I mean, you go out 7 times and not see a deer, it's hard to keep the kids interested, for sure. But we're just, I guess we were just a little blessed. I think it was the 7th hunt when you shot your first buck.
So the next clip that you're going to hear, and I don't want to cut short on the Twig family story, because like I said, you need to go back and listen to that episode. It's an amazing story through and through. But the next clip we're going to hear from, this is taken from the episode with Dr. Pesapane from The Ohio State University. This clip is taken from there. And that episode was full of a lot of great information about ticks that are in Ohio, the tick-borne diseases that are here in Ohio, from alpha gall syndrome, which is an allergy to a protein in mammalian meat. It is also talked about the different types of ticks, the newcomers to Ohio, which are starting to spread across the country, and the problems that they pose. And of course, it wouldn't be fair of us to talk about all the issues without giving you some type of preventative measures or something you could do to help prevent being bitten by ticks. And so Dr. Pesapane kind of tackled this as a good, better, best approach. So let's hear what she has to say.
So let's talk about some preventative measures. What are the best ways for someone to prevent encounters with, obviously not going out in the outdoors? That's not an option. What are the best ways for someone to prevent?
Right. Setting aside, the idea of, avoiding tick habitat, like presuming there's a reason that you're in various habitats. I really liked how you laid it out as good, better, or best. So let's use that framework. So good is doing a tick check. So ticks often can take some time to transmit. Well, first of all, it takes some time to find a good spot to tuck in and cement into place and begin feeding. So the sooner you get that tick off, the less likely they are to be able to have transmitted a pathogen to you. So tick checks can go a long way to prevent tick-borne disease. But better than tick checks is also wearing clothing that is light colored, tucking your socks into, or your pants into your socks, and your shirt into your pants, just so there's less access to skin. Even better than that is to also wear a tick repellent on any exposed skin. So there's a wide variety of repellents. I always say, whatever lifestyle you have, if you're into plant-based products, the EPA has a website called Find the Repellent That's Right for You, and you can basically say, like, you want protection from the following arthropod, vectors, and you want it for this amount of time, and you can filter through and see what products the EPA has basically evaluated and say are sufficiently protective. So there is a plant-based product, there's DEET, there's picaridin. So, whether you don't want to use a certain chemical, if you don't like the smell, if you don't like the feel, like, there are repellents that are protective for all types of concerns. So that's better. And then best, in my opinion, is those things plus wearing clothing that's treated with permethrin. And this is what I use for my students. I send my students into, I joke, I send them into Tickmageddon, like they're going out there, literally, intentionally, among thousands of ticks to collect them. And it's my job to keep those people safe. And I promise you, all of the, 37,000 ticks in our collection, I have never had anyone on my team get a tick bite. And that is because all of our clothing is treated with permethrin, and you can do that yourself, like you talked about, Sean. You can buy products that have it already in them, and those often last through more washing. So, like, for example, I know some products can last for 70 washings, with the treatment on them. Or if you already have your favorite gear and you want high quality protection on it, you don't want to apply it yourself, there are also companies that you can mail in, like your favorite Carhartt bibs or whatever, and they will treat them with the permethrin at the industrial grade, and that way you can have those clothes treated. So you don't have to think about doing a lot of remembering to to apply your repellents and things. If you go out to the garden, you go out for a hunt or whatever, you throw on your favorite gear that's been treated, then you're in really, really good shape for protection. And then if you follow that up with tick checks and showers, you can be pretty confident that you're going to be safe from tick-borne disease.
Well, I appreciate a lot of the preventive measures there, and I don't want people to get like too nervous. And then, so this next clip is, I think, probably one of the high profile, or at least the highest profile guest I've had so far. And this is the chief of the Division of Wildlife, Kendra Wecker. And while we discussed a lot in the 30 minutes or so that her and I were talking to one another, this clip focuses on the new program in Ohio that they're able to expand more on. But this is the OLAP program, or the Ohio Hunters and Landowners Partnership Program. And it's about land access, where the state is providing, basically renting or leasing land from property owners to allow walk-in access for the general public. Now, there's some rules associated to it, and you have to sign up for the program yourself as a hunter to be able to access this. But it's a step towards trying to alleviate a problem here in Ohio. And the problem isn't opportunity. Ohio is one of those opportunistic states. There's plenty of opportunity, but access is getting slimmer. So the state is doing their best to try to, I guess, alleviate this problem. There's still a long way to go, but we're making steps. So here's Kendra talking about the OLAP program.
We plan for the future. How are we going to make this better than we have it now, right? So with their support and leadership, we've been able to tackle a lot of different projects. Particularly, we've expanded the Ohio Landowner Hunter Access Partnership Program, and that's where we communicate with landowners. We get them signed up into our program, and we give them a payment. So we're paying them to open their land to hunting. They can see who is on their property by the names, which was really important to landowners. They didn't want to just have anonymous people on there. And it's one person per 50 acres. So it's, really safe, right? One person per 50 acres. So right now we have 30,000 acres signed up in that program. We'd like to grow it to 40,000. So anybody out there want to spread the message and, try to get other landowners to sign up, because hunting access is definitely one of the limiting factors here in Ohio. We own about 250,000 acres, and then we have partnerships with some other companies that open their property,
Yes.
For us. And but that's not very much acreage in the whole state for all the hunters that we have, and then of course non-residents that like to come visit. So finding more places to hunt, finding accessible ways to get people onto property is really important to us. So that new program's been going really well. It has a high 90% plus satisfaction rate from the landowners, as well as from the hunters who are signing up in it. So that's really important to us, is to continue to have those accessible programs. We're not buying that land. We're just kind of renting it for the time being. But meanwhile, acquiring property that is adjacent to wildlife areas or in holdings, that's been a focus of ours, and Governor DeWine's been very supportive of that as well. And so again, adding those acres to our areas. And that's really just one of the best things we can do, because we don't make more land. And so, in Ohio, we're 94% privately owned, and which is, that's not a bad thing or anything. So how do we make property where the public can go and enjoy hunting and fishing and trapping, let alone hiking, bird watching, and all that kind of stuff too?
This is where our format changed, is this next episode, or this next series of episodes. We're going to come back to an audio only format, only because it was a previously recorded episode that I kept in a hopper for a while until closer to deer season, when I went ahead and released it. But this next episode, this is James Holmes, the Scrape Doctor himself, and this is the very first of a series of 5 episodes where we started with why. And with the why is, well, I don't know. Let's just hear from James. Instead of me dolling it up, let's hear from James.
other than just, I just want, like I said before, I really want guys to start opening their minds to doing this, not necessarily in an entirely different way, but in a very different way, way better results. You know, I can't preach it enough that been doing it wrong for 40 years, you know, and it's enough. We need to start doing this. If guys really want to have success with mock scrapes and kill deer in these scrapes, then they need to stop doing it the old way. That it just isn't working anymore. The deer have grown tired of the old ways, so it's time to step out of the box and do something different.
Well, I think it's actually adding like an actual true deer behavior to what we're doing versus what we've been told to do. Like somebody said, "Hey, I did this on the ground once and it worked. You should try it." Right. And then that's how a product gets sold. Right now, you're selling a system that is more than just a one-time deal, and it's getting there, and the word's getting out there. And if you knew my buddy who was I was talking to, if you were able to convert him to get his interest into it, then you're onto something, because he's one of the ones that, I don't want to say he's a laggard when it comes to things, but he definitely wasn't part of the early majority. Like he's the I would say he would be the tail end of the late majority, because he already had an experience with it. Like he had said, like, and he's like 98%. I'm like, I was out of sense, like 98%, not going to do it, never going to do it again. And now this has sparked his interest, and he's ready to dive into it again, because it's the value that you give to that particular mode, or that particular tool of bow hunting or deer hunting in general, I should say. And it's not just bow hunting, but
No, it's not.
so
And I didn't think so in the beginning, but I mean, I guess we kind of really do gravitate towards the bow hunter, honestly, in the mock scrape world, because most rifle hunters, are not, they're long range. You know what? Does that make sense? Yeah, a lot of rifle hunters do see deer, bucks, work scrape, do, but it's at long range. It's at hundreds of yards on the far end of an alpha field. You know what I mean? And
long range field edges, absolutely.
And that in early season, you're not having the guys that hunt up here that are hunting late November are not having bucks come to field edges. They won't come near a field edge. So they've been shot at 500 times. So I mean, I guess we do really gravitate towards the bow hunter end of this. But definitely don't discriminate against any kind of deer hunt.
No. Well, statistically speaking, archery has overtaken firearms in Ohio, and I can't speak for every other state, but I know it has overtaken firearms as the number one means of deer harvest in Ohio, and crossbows is number one. So it actually has overtaken your longbow. So in Ohio, we distinguish between longbow, so that includes recurves, compounds. Basically anything that is a longbow goes into that, right? It's not just the traditional longbow, it's any of those, right? And then you have the crossbow, which is what you know of it as is the crossbow. So, but that's number one in Ohio. And then number two is straight walled cartridge, was the number two implement used to harvest deer. So, but still the not overwhelming majority, but a good majority is archery. So it's not too far to say that, yeah, we do kind of placate to that, but I can only speak for Ohio, because that's when most people are hunting. That's when most of the time that a lot of the tactics we're talking about in this, or a lot of this, especially during the rut, it's archery season here in Ohio. Like, and I know
the bulk of what we think of when we do this kind of a thing, the mock scrapes and all the even real scrapes, is that, and it's up close, and it's, you know what I mean? So it is free time. So, I mean, it is all up close and in your face. So that's what guys expect. And that's what we're doing then. So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered some stuff.
We have covered a good bit. So starting with why there, don't worry, there's more to come. But this next episode, or next clip, or a couple of clips, is going to be a conversation that I had with co-host Sam. And the first one is, now, while this is not new to season 2, like, the 2025 time frame, it's wolves in Colorado and the reintroduction of wolves. And I guess what kind of sparked this conversation was the fact that they had lost several more wolves Some that they had that just left the state have taken off and ended up being shot in other states because of predation problems or depredation problems. And this is also talking about, this also was spurred by the fact that Colorado Parks and Wildlife had to go out and shoot a couple more wolves because of depredation. So this is a clip of Sam and I talking about what is essentially a failed experiment of wolf reintroduction into Colorado.
I can't talk on the generally how much they originally had budgeted for this, but obviously they're well above it. But let's talk about another thing they're well above already, and that is their depredation funds. they have doubled. I think the depredation complaints have doubled, and that the payouts have already reaching or going to reach double of what the actual allocated funds for that was, because I think they had about $350,000 they typically pay out every year for depredation, and they've already doubled it. So
let's see. Colorado ranchers have submitted nearly $650,000 in claims for wolf depredation, exceeding the compensation fund by significant margin.
Yeah, by
the
significant.
state's compensation fund, which is capped at $350,000 annually. So we're already on pace to double that. I mean, we're almost there. So, we can get mad and we can scream at the sky. We can blame this person, that person. But the people who voted for this, the blood's on your hands. And speaking of which, it's going to bring me to Initiative 13, brought forth by some folks at Colorado. And it's basically to end the introduction after December 31st, 2020, or by December 31st, 2026. If we get enough signatures on these ballots that are being pushed, we have a good chance of getting it turned into a proposition, in which then it'll change from I-13 to proposition, and number shall follow. So, it'll stop the waste of a lot of this taxpayer money. It'll hopefully end the farce that the state's trying to continuously push so far about how great this introduction is going to be, and what's here will be here, and we'll see how the numbers fluctuate from there.
Right. Before I go any further, folks, I want you to look me right in my eyes right now. I want you to look me in my eyes, and I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. I love animals. I hunt. I get it, but I love animals. And on top of that, I love wolves. Like, I don't have anything against wolves. I don't have anything against predators. So the conversation I'm about to have is not because I absolutely despise them. I don't. I really don't. I do think that they are a vital part of the ecosystem. My problem with all this, though, is that you are bringing in apex predators from a different freaking country or different region, and then dropping them into a place that they don't know and think that it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's not. You have ripped animals from an area that they know their territory, they know their area, and they're very territorial. You ripped them from that and dropped them into the middle of God's land, and then you've got one who is just running around that has no idea where to go, what to do. You've had a couple that's already left state and ended up in Wyoming. And then now you're at a 60% survival rate. And everyone says, oh, Yellowstone. They are that's where we get a lot of our numbers from, is that we will need to be somewhere between 70 and 80 some percent survival rate. So in other words, your mortality rate can't go more than 25 to 30%. If it's over 30%, then there's a good chance that you're not going to have a successful successful introduction program. Let's stop there. You're at 60%, or right around almost a 40% mortality rate. Open your eyes. And of course, nobody is, because here's the problem with the left. The left is going to sit there, and it doesn't matter what facts you throw at them. They're just going to stand on that hill, and they will throw money at it and resources at it until they prove themselves right. That's the problem with the left and where the left stands right now. And I didn't want to get political on this, but here we go. But here's my problem with you. You guys voted for this stuff, and you wonder why these things are happening. And like Sam said earlier, the blood is on your guys' hands. You voted this in, and without even understanding what this does or what this is going to be. And you didn't listen to the people who are paid to do their freaking job, and that's the biologists of the state.
So we cannot not talk about the elephant in the room. And of course, some of the biggest news of 2025 in the hunting world, at least here in Ohio, was the guilty plea of Mr. CJ Alexander, who poached that ginormous typical buck. Which, if you listen to our previous podcast, before all the information was out, I was very neutral, and I was like, listen, it is what it is. Like, I want to hear more before I make a total decision and jump on the bandwagon on one side or the other. Well, during this whole entire time frame, the indictment came out. It was like a 23 charge indictment, a lot of felony level stuff. And Outdoor Life did a article on it, and they apparently did a public records request for the indictment itself. And it was basically a transcript of everything that had taken place, along with phone calls and text messages that they got off of CJ's phone. And there was one entry on this transcript in particular that sparked my interest and became kind of a running joke between everybody in my hunting party. And that was from a conversation that CJ was having with his fiance at the time, that she was worried that he was going to get caught and, just wanting him to be careful. And he assured her that everything would be fine because he was wearing camo and he's pretty sneaky. We see how well that worked out for him. Well, this is a clip of Sammy and I talking about that very transcript. Enjoy. And she was texting, worried he was going to get caught. And now this isn't verbatim what he said, but, this is pretty close. And so she's like texting him, saying, hey, I'm worried you're going to get caught, blah, blah, blah. And he responded back, don't worry, I'm wearing camo and I'm pretty sneaky.
Jeez, Al. Oh man.
So that was kind of a running joke with us that week. Not that we were doing anything wrong, but there was like if somebody mentioned something stupid, we're like, oh, don't worry, I'm wearing camo. I'm pretty sneaky. We'll get away with it.
I think I'm gonna start using that one at work when the boss asks if I've called in locates.
So yeah, that was like my favorite line from that entire transcript. I'm like, you dumbass. And what we said in the podcast before, I'm like, you know what? If he's innocent, like I hope if you're innocent, I hope you won. But the facts, I think we knew then too that it wasn't going to go that way. But at the same time, like, hey, it is what it is. At this point, we don't know everything, so let's hear what it is. And then the transcripts come out, like, it's like, yeah, you dumbass.
And then to come out almost immediately and start doing press and everything and just throwing it in DNR's face like you were better than them, you were smarter than them. Like, you're not. They've got technology, they've got things, they're gonna get you. It might take longer than you think, but they're gonna get you. So just quit being silly.
Yeah, and the fact that he's like, oh, no, I've never really seen this deer before, or no one really talked about this deer. I'm like, you're full of shit, dude. You're so full of crap because I've got a decent deer, nowhere near what that deer was, but I've got a decent deer that I've got photos of. That there's at least 4 or 5 of us in that area that know about that deer, and all 4 or 5 of us are hopefully going to be the one to put an arrow through him. But no, people know about stuff like that. You cannot get away with stuff like that because people know, especially a deer that unique is.
Yeah. Well, the neighbors probably know about it, but potentially they're not saying anything to you because they're hoping that you don't. And that's the only way nobody said anything, is like, we got this deer, we hope it's staying here, but it's probably not. All the broke up parcels, every other property within 5 square miles has seen damn thing.
Yeah. At some point they've seen that deer, or as he got older, maybe his core area got a little bit smaller, because I tell you, the one we got now, granted, he's showing up on like 3 or 4, like 3 different properties that I'm aware of. And so he's not traveling a whole lot, but he doesn't have to, though. Like, he's got everything he needs in that small little area. And even the areas that he is traveling in is very limited in those 3 properties.
So I'm looking forward to this season. I really am. I'm hoping that early on we can get that done and over with.
Yeah. You kind of had a rough time this past year. It was all doe, and I wouldn't say terrible, but nothing that you were overly excited to take as far as deer with antlers.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't want it to sound bad to people because what I preach, what we preach is obviously chasing your experience and stuff. So yeah, there was probably a couple of deer that I passed up that others probably wouldn't have, or there's just times that I just got busted by them. I didn't mean to pass them up, but it's just how it happened. But at the end of the day, though, like I wouldn't say. I mean, I wouldn't say it was overly like buck hunting. Yes, was a little rough on me last year. I had opportunities that just didn't work out. But just deer season in general, it was a lot of fun last year. I got 4 doe on my own. My son shot a doe, so I mean we had a pretty good season last year altogether. I mean, good experiences and I hate to say this, but I got sick around New Year's Eve last year, and the weirdest thing I've ever had in my life. But that's I started getting photos, like my camera up there where that buck had been showing up hadn't been working right. So as soon as I started feeling better, I went up there and grabbed that camera, and on the card, although it never sent to me, it was cellular wise, but on the card there's photos of him being around there about that time frame that I was sick, and I'd have been out there hunting. And he was daylighting too, and that was a problem with him. Like he's the type of deer you just got to be at the right place at the right time. He's hard to pattern. He really is. So, but that's not why we're here today. We got a few things to talk about. We got a few current events to talk about. So,
Unfortunately, out here saving the world again.
right? Whew. I still laugh today, and I still use that on occasion. That running joke there of it's okay. I'm in camo and I'm pretty sneaky. Anyways, so this next clip, welcome. We're going to welcome James back, and now we're talking about height, which is probably one of the biggest things most people mess up with their mock scrapes is they hang them too high. So here's James talking about what the right height of your mock scrapes should be. James? And I think one of the things that most people forget or most people don't think about is how high they set their mock scrapes up, right? And you've talked about it before in a podcast with me that a lot of people need to lower their expectations, because what the average height of a deer, shorter height, 3 to 4 feet, they're not as tall as people think they are.
39 inches.
Yeah, but so they're not overly tall. So let's talk about height and when placing these mock scrapes, or what height we're looking for, and some good gauges and some lookouts into why we should focus on this height versus what does it look like if it's too high? What happens if it's too low? Let's talk about those aspects. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. We can. Exactly. The thing with the height thing there, Sean, is I'm not sure that you can go too low, honestly, because whatever you're using, a rope or whatever, as it gets closer to the ground, they can still reach it and rub on it and all of that. They can still do all of that lower. But if it's up too high, they can't reach it. They're going to walk under it. They're not going to get the scent. The scent's above their head now if you're way up high. Okay. Which means if you come in to a natural licking branch that's at eyeball height or nose height, somewhere in that area, right in your face, it's too high. The deer can walk under that easily. I mean, their head goes right under that. So bring that down to natural stuff, especially those bushes that I talk about walking and spraying between your knees and your waist. That's optimum height. A deer's going to walk up and stick their head out, a doe especially, and it's going to come in somewhere right around in that zone, because an adult doe is still even smaller than an adult buck. So she's going to be somewhere below your waist when she comes walking in at natural height at a relaxed stance, just standing there with her nose forward. She's going to hit that at your waist or below. They're just not very big. So somewhere, and I've explained this now for quite a long time and used those analogies for height, waist to chest, somewhere in that zone. That's your hot spot. That's the sweet spot. So what that amounts to measurement wise is everybody seems to want a number. So we can start that at 40 inches from the bottom of a rope. Start at 40 inches. It's going to put you right at your belly button, basically. If you stick a diff tape measure down on the ground and come up 40 inches, it's going to land somewhere around your belly button. So start there and go 40 to 44 inches. So you're in this zone, unless you're an absolute giant man where your torso's, you're wearing a 39, 38 shirt with extra long, extra long and all that because you got these big, huge arms. Unless you're that guy and normal. So we're going to have to start explaining, I guess, with numbers instead of body parts, because it's to the point now where it's starting to, the water is getting muddied for people. And I don't want it to be confusing. I want it to be simple, you know? So I figured and the reason I guess I explained it the way I did for so long was because your waist is a pretty simple measurement, but not everybody's waist is in the same place. Simple as that.
It is. I want to ask, what do you think most people think they need to set these things up at their face?
I think it's honestly my opinion on that has always been because they see these deer up on their hind legs in the scrapes. That's the pictures they see in the videos of these deer going up on their hind legs to work up above. And they think that they need to be super high up in the air, but that's where the deer like to do it. That's where they do it. It's normal. Well, it's not. It's because there's nothing down low. It's just a frustration factor. That scrape that you found that opened up between the two ropes could have been exactly that. Maybe there was something going on. They couldn't get a good work on your rope. They got frustrated, went down there and made one there, and then went on to the next rope. A lot of times that's what'll happen. If we've talked about that, that's why we hang those poison ivies in those big gaping overhangs where there's a scrape. Well, that's because they've broken everything out of there. There's nothing left. And it doesn't seem like, in my experience, which has been for a while, they won't go from, say, like right here in this scrape and then this gets broken out. You see it. When you walk up, you can see a tree that's had a scrape in it a lot of years because it'll get a dome in it where everything's broken. They just don't seem to move just that 2 feet or 3 feet to one side or the other to get those branches that are right here. They'll go 20 yards and make another scrape or go to the opposite side of that apple tree.
So this next clip is from a conversation that Justin Ross and I had. We welcomed Justin back to the podcast to talk about archery hike. And this is about the time that the great public land grab was hot and heavy. Now you have to remember that this was previously had been in the House of Representatives, and the language for the sale of public land was taken out. And when it got to the Senate, it got reintroduced by none other than good old Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Senator Mike Lee from Utah. This is Justin and I talked about why that was a bad idea. And I think the biggest thing, obviously, what we're talking about is that there's a senator, and I'm going to disclose some things too. There's a senator out of Utah, Mike Lee, that is proposing or put into the big beautiful bill or something like that is what they call it. They put language into it once it got to the Senate, and there's more to it than just that, but we'll get to that. But right now it's Mike Lee pushing it to sell off like a significant amount of public land, and it's causing uproar. It really has. Like it's everywhere. If you have anything that deals with an outdoor feed, you've seen it. It's everywhere. So I just wanted to, I guess we just sit down and discuss it just a little bit, just kind of get our thoughts out there. What do you think?
It's kind of, it's complex. Let's just start by saying it's complex. There's a lot tied into that bill that pertains to other things. But to have this lumped into it, it is a little disheartening with the tradition of what, we have here in the States and how we view, our public lands. At the end of the day, the most we can do as citizens is call our senators and say, hey, what's going on? Like, you got to don't support this. But again, it's complex and, on the surface, we live in the East. We don't have a ton of public land here, but and this 3 million acres, give or take, they're talking about selling off is, out west. And there's various reasons why they want to sell it off. But yeah, if us folks that live in the east are going out west to hunt, pretty good chance we're going to public lands, and that is our access to enjoy hunting in the west. And definitely, it's disheartening to think that there's a movement to sell some of that off. However, they want to define that it's usable, not usable. We want to use it for this. Whatever. It's just the point that the tradition of having public lands in the states is very valuable to a lot of people, and I don't think that we should stoop to the level of selling those public lands off as a revenue grab. And we should actually maybe look at saving or on our costs and what we're spending in the budget compared to selling off and creating a revenue grab that's not really going to create anything good for anybody. It's just at the end of the day, for us hunters, it's taking access away from us to enjoy our lands that we own as citizens of the United States.
It's at best, it's a temporary fix to a long-term problem, is what it is.
Absolutely.
And it's only going. I don't see any good coming from it at all, regardless of what they want to say it's going to do. I don't see any lasting good come from it. Like the affordable housing, no, it's not going. If it does create any, it's not. If you know where most of these lands are, where most of them show up at, they're in some pretty, not always inaccessible places, but there's some pretty hard to reach places. And there's no infrastructure there. So there's not going to be an easy cost. Like the cost to build what you think you're going to build there is astronomical. And it's not going to be affordable. I don't know. I'm not for it. Like I know Mike Lee got on his Instagram account and was talking about, well, everyone's just being an absolutionist, absolution, whatever that word is. Everyone's on it's either all or nothing, right? You're not selling it at all, period, right? He's like, there's no compromise. Well, maybe this little bit here, maybe this little bit there. But I'm sorry, there's a reason why the people are like that. It's because we know as soon as it starts, it's not going to stop. Like once you open the door, it's like, well, we did it here, then, well, we can do it here too. Let's do it here. And you're right. We are on the east side. We don't have a lot of public ground, but there's a lot of Easterners that rely on public ground for hunting, not just out west, but here in the east. And how long,
smaller parcels,
in the west, like there's so much public ground in the west. And I don't know. I think a lot of people need to go and listen to Brian Call at the Grady podcast, because I think him and Mike Livesey did a really good job explaining like some of the history behind public land and how it all started during like the creation. The creation of the country. I'm not going to go down that road. Like they did a good enough job explaining that, right? And how they ended up with the public land and why there's so much federal land out there. And there's been examples in the past where we've given it back to the states, where the federal government said, here, you can have it, and the states sold it off. The idea, Oregon is a good example of that. But the idea was, here's the public land, you can use it for timber and stuff so that you can fund your public schools. And so the idea wasn't for them to sell it off. They was the idea to use the resource of the timber to pay for their public schools. So what did they do? They sold it. They sold it off, and now they don't have it anymore. Like it's gone. All right. So the next clip you're going to hear, this was kind of a banger for us, and this one sparked a lot of debate on TikTok when these shorts started to come out, when I started to do the clips from this show. This is James Backey. Now we're talking about all things that stink, basically. The scents, that is the scents and the glands and the stuff that is used, that deer use to communicate through mock scrapes, and how to properly use them. And this one, I think, is hot off the presses, and it's James's hot take on ranking popular scents. Or when I say popular scents, like I'm talking about just categories, not tanks or something like that, not name brands. It's nothing like that. It's like tarsal gland versus orbital gland, preorbital gland versus interdigital gland, urine, things like this. So we rank those from best to worst, right? Or highest priority to least priority. At least what he felt was that hunters need to focus more on the higher priority stuff versus the lower priority stuff. So here's that ranking. If you're going to rank from most common communication to the least common communication, what would that be? And let's keep it to the realm of scents, because let's say urine's a scent. That's the reason why we're using it. It's a scent, right? It's something that smells like a deer. Tarsal glands are scents. Preorbital gland is scents. And even there was used to be a rub line, a rub ooze or rub goo or something that was supposed to be mimic
Forehead glands.
the forehead glands. Easy for me to say right now. So, but if you're going to rank them from most frequent or the most important to the least important, let's do it that way. How would you rank them?
Preorbital is number one every time.
Okay. Okay.
Then you're going to go to the forehead. Then you're
Okay.
going to probably go to your interdigital.
All right.
The one here in the hooves.
Right.
Then
Okay.
then you're probably going to go into your tarsal glands and urine.
Okay.
And urine, because urine is not in my mind, is not a standalone scent. It has to go to be useful. It needs to go through the tarsal glands. So tarsal glands and then urine at the end. Urine's the least important.
Okay. I think that's that's fair. So since preorbital is the most important, right? And because that's the one that usually the mock scrapes are kind of following along with, is going to be that preorbital and probably the forehead, right? And those would be your main ones. One is I don't know if I want to go down this road because we talked about this a little bit off air. I know tarsal glands get thrown in this conversation a little bit at a time. I just don't see. I'm having a hard time imagining how a deer would get tarsal gland sent into a tree. I'm having a hard time visualizing that.
The thought process there is that they rub that on their head and then they rub it in that licking branch and up in those trees and all of that. And in my opinion, that's not a purposeful thing. They're not rubbing back there on purpose on that tarsal gland saying, hey, I got to get this tarsal gland on my forehead to get up in that. That's not something that I've been hunting a long time. Since the early 80s. So I've got a few years in the woods. I've watched a lot of deer. I've watched a lot of scrape. I've had cameras on. If there were a number, I would probably be shocked of how many cameras I put on scrapes. Have I seen deer rub their face and their foreheads on their tarsal glands? Yeah, I have. But have I ever seen one immediately go up and rub it in a licking branch? Nope. Honest, I've never seen that. There are guys that are going to say, yeah, it happens all the time. I see it all the time. What I see is a deer rubbing that tarsal gland, maybe itching their face more than anything, because that's how deer itch their faces, with that hind leg. They don't itch with their front legs. So my mind is seeing that. I'm looking past that. I'm a half full guy. I'll go with your glass of half full, but don't tip it over on the way by and try to tell me that the glass just broke. You know what I mean? Because that's just not, it's not something I see. And if you get results with it, kudos to you. I'll never tell anyone to do it on purpose.
Back to, hey, if you're getting results with it, you got the confidence, just use it. I understand that. So let's keeping that ranking in mind. So urine's at the bottom, preorbital is at the top of the list, right? If you're going to promote a scent program or a scent system for somebody, what would you tell them to focus on then?
The deer's face. That's where the glands are that you care about.
Okay.
Forehead and preorbital, right here. It's right in their face. That's it's where you want to be. Those are the ones that they're using. They're doing this with that. You know what I mean? You have to think like a deer. They're rubbing their whole face in there. So those are the two glands that matter. For what we're seeing in these licking branches and the reactions that we get, and you see the reactions.
Mm-hmm.
There's your answer right there. Got the synthetic preorbital, added a little bit of synthetic forehead reaction gland.
All right, this next clip is another one with James, and this is we were talking about failures of mock scrapes. And while the height is probably the number one thing most people screw up with mock scrapes, then this one is probably number two, or a very close second, and it's the location of the mock scrape. and you just can't go out in the woods and just put a mock scrape and think it's going to work. So this is James talking about how you find the right spot to create your little community hub of a mock scrape. Let's hear from James.
Go find the sign. You found it there, or you thought you found it there and made that mock scrape there, and that clearly wasn't the hot spot, wasn't that peach of a spot. So now you have to go find it.
And that could even be like, even if you know the property or you hunted the property before, or you've done some scouting, you found old scrapes, follow the same trail that scrape is on, go set yours up somewhere off of that, and then start the hub off from there. And then
basically what it amounts to is if you can find those old scrapes, that means they're probably not quite as old as you think. And if they're clear and it's summertime, that means they're active. They're standing in them at the very least. Because when they stand in them and they walk away, what do? They drag leaves out when they walk away, or they pull them in. You know what I mean? They don't ever stay completely full of leaves if the deer are walking in and out of them all the time and milling in circles under that licking branch. Follow those scrapes to the hub. You'll find it, or you'll find a spot where all those scrapes seem to converge, and there may not even be. There's not going to probably be a scrape there, but your mind at that point should go, "Oh my God, look at this! I'm gonna put a licking branch right here. I'm gonna start a mock right here, and that's the spot. That is the spot that turns communal, that turns into your community hub."
So what are the resets you think? Because that makes, I don't think you can break it down any easier than that, other than just moving just a little bit here, a little bit there. And like you said, even that small shift is enough in most cases, is enough to actually create a difference for the deer. So obviously height's another thing. I think that's an easy thing to talk about. Just lower it.
Lower your expectations and lower your licking branches. It's as simple as that.
And we covered that on the height as well a lot. Like there's no such thing really as too low. You're going to see too high. Yeah, you're going to see too high, but I guess if you're going to err when you're setting these, especially if you have to reset, if you're going to err lower than higher. So that's a pretty quick and easy one to talk about. And that's just lower the thing. Set it down lower than you think, because if you think it needs to be here in your face, you're wrong. It needs to be down lower than that.
That's and then I guess the other thing that will set you up for a location to fail, even if you hit that sweet spot and you're in the great spot, and you hang your rope there, and you don't hang it stiff enough, and it's spinning in circles, and they chase it, like we've talked about, like they don't. We've discussed they don't like the loose rope. They don't want that loose rope. They want that stiff, rigid thing there to work against in that resistance.
Right.
So if that rope is swinging free like that and not straight down and where they can whack it around, it's going to move obviously some because it has to, right? So they can, that's a failure because they're going to lose interest in that, chasing it around and whipping their head around like that. And then down they go. Like we've talked about, they find another branch that's nice and stiff, work it, and now we're happy and we're not coming back.
Is that because someone's not tightening it enough to the whatever they were tightening it to?
Honestly, what it amounts to usually is, it's got that wire loop on there. So people will take those zip ties and just put it through the wire loop and zip tie it right to the branch instead of clipping. I always recommend to clip the branch that you're going to hang it on, slide it over, and then zip tie in an X over the top, and that will tighten that up and make it more rigid hanging down instead of it swinging free. Because if you just zip tie the zip tie tight over that wire, it's like a pendulum.
There's two from this episode that I wanted to highlight. And this next episode was with none other than Billy Dryden, the legend himself. And him and I are talking about just all things archery. I invited Billy over to be on the podcast to kind of talk about his experience with ETAR, which is the Eastern Traditional Archery Rendezvous that he had just attended. But while I was here, him and I, kind of shot on my little mini 3D course I set up around the house and had a good time there. Then we came in and recorded a podcast. And that podcast, we got into a lot of discussions, some of them pretty controversial. And, while I generally am on the side of, hey, listen, as long as it's ethical and it's legal, you chase the experience that you want. and I know that it's not a very controversial take on things. Billy, though, is a little bit more opinionated than I am. And this first clip is Billy and I discussing about how hunting in Ohio has evolved over the last years.
I mean, when you would hear in gun season, it was like really not a big deal to hear 100 shots in a day.
Yeah.
And now if you hear 5, that's a lot.
Yeah.
The gun season is not as prevalent as it used to be.
Right.
The gun hunters probably love it because the deer move during the day still. They're not there. It's not like it used to be where you had to move deer.
Right.
But it's not the same as it was. And I guess we're always reaching back to how it used to be.
Right.
Those of us that lived it, and the younger kids don't know any different. So they don't know what it was like when we were young. And you had, if you were a bow hunter, it's kind of a big deal.
Right.
And if you killed a deer with a bow, even when I was a kid, if you killed a buck with a bow, it's kind of a big deal. You'd try to get your picture in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see 1,000, 140, 150, 160 deer during hunting season on Instagram, where before it was a big deal. And now it's kind of, you're desensitized to it. And then you got people that have never killed a buck saying, well, I'm not going to kill less than a 130.
Yeah.
Where when we were a kid, I mean, if it had 6 points, we were probably going to shoot it.
Yeah. I was listening to somebody talk. It was Don Higgins, actually. And I was listening to him on a podcast. And he said, it's not that he said it because he's true. It's the fact that this is true. The fact of shooting a big deer is not that big of a deal anymore.
It's to an extent, it's not. Like really big deer. If somebody shot a 200 20 years ago, absolutely unheard of. Like you were probably getting a call from the outdoor, magazine, Outdoor Life or Field and Stream, and they wanted to do an article. Now it happens so often that it's normal because we are more efficient hunters.
Yep.
And more people are passing that 130, 140 inch deer to get those bigger deer. But locally it's harder to do because you have such small parcels.
Yeah.
It's especially in Iowa where you have big tracts of land. It's really not a big deal because if you've got 1,000 acres, you can grow 180 or 190.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of not shooting that deer before he's 5.5.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Like he really left this bad taste in my mouth. Not, like I said, not because he said it, because he was bragging, but because I knew what he said was true.
Oh, it's absolutely true.
Right. 150, no one cares.
No, and it used to be. If you shot a 150, I remember the first buck I ever shot with a bow, ever, was a 160, and it was a big deal. It was 20 some years ago. It was a big deal, and now, like, yeah, that's a great buck, but I have a buddy that's killed a 200.
Sadly, somebody would look at you at 160 said, why couldn't you give him another year?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
It's still a big deer, but we're so inundated every day on Facebook, Instagram, the internet that you think it's normal.
Right.
If you kill a one, there's guys that kill 130s and they don't want to post them because somebody's gonna be like, oh, should have gave that another year.
Listen, none of these deer are over 140. Like all of them have all scored under 140, and I wouldn't think twice of shooting them again today.
No, and I am not so much a score guy.
Right.
I want to shoot a 4.5-year-old.
Right.
That's what I want to do. If you kill a 3-year-old and you're happy, that's awesome.
Right.
If you shoot it and then you make a bunch of excuses, that doesn't really jive with me.
No, it doesn't with me either. Now, I have to agree that gun season is not what it used to be here in Ohio. At least here where I'm at. Maybe it is still a big thing in some small pockets of the state, but here where I'm at, it's not what it used to be. I'm not saying it's antiquated and it's on its way out. Like there's still people that participate in it. I participated in the last couple of years. I haven't gun hunted in a long time, but the last 2 seasons I've gone out and have been successful. And what I've noticed, one of the things that drove me away from gun hunting was, first off, the group I hunted with, we started to disband a little bit. And so the camaraderie, I think, that kept me in it was gone. The other thing is that deer just wasn't doing what deer do, right? They were running pretty much during gun season. And at least that was my experience, right? And that's when I started I was starting to really get hot and heavy into archery at that point, where deer were still doing deer things. And I fell in love with that chess match of what archery was versus gun season. Well, then, as hunting in Ohio has evolved, I gotta say, in my experience, it's gun season's just like archery season. Just you have a gun, because deer are still doing deer things now. Like I've shot a couple deer coming to food, like natural food, like during the daylight, early, that you would never seen. Last year, I had a dandy buck coming in on camera, secondary deer season on camera, not a care in the world, middle of the day, 11 o'clock at one of my spots, middle of gun season for full on mature deer. So gun season is not what it used to be. So I agree there. The next thing, the next thing that we're going to talk about, and this is a very controversial topic, and if you don't believe me, just post something about it and let the comments flow. But this is baiting, and Billy's hot take on baiting. Now, I'm going to say both Billy and I have been involved in baiting. Like, we have used bait to harvest deer. So we're not saying that we're above it, but Billy has an interesting take on baiting and how he wishes it would kind of just go away. So let's hear from Billy. But let's talk about other things that are legal, and that's baiting in Ohio. So that was another kind of a side conversation that, you and I have had this discussion before. The first time you were on the podcast, in the event some of you aren't familiar, this is he was from episode number 2, I believe, talking about when he built his own trad bow, own arrows and broadhead, and went out and shot a deer with his all made stuff. So same guy. But let's talk about baiting for a second.
I'm not gonna sit here and say I've never done it. I've killed deer over it. I may kill one over it this year, but I miss the old days when you hunted deer and you didn't hunt corn. Now it's really a matter of who can spend the most money on corn. If you can spend, a couple $100 a week on corn, you're going to have the deer, because the guy that can only buy one bag is not going to have them. Where before, you got to hunt deer on their own terms. You hunted deer where they lived and how they lived. You didn't sit on a corn pile. You hunted deer if you knew there's an acorn tree back here and the deer are coming down this ridge. They either set up on the acorns or you set up on the travel route to them. Then you hunted actually deer that were not disturbed. You hunted deer doing what deer do. Now deer do what we make them do, basically.
And I think that's only going to get exacerbated because of the way our recent real estate has been going. It's because a lot of large acre properties are getting broken down into smaller parcels. So there are a lot more like 10, 20, acre parcels. And so there's a lot more people that are dividing that in that are wanting their slice of the pie. So the easiest way for them to do it is to get into the baiting aspect and just dropping corn. So I think that's just getting exacerbated because of that's, once again, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because there's probably a lot more to it because it's a complex issue. Back to my original statement about a complex issue, but I think it's getting worse because of that.
It 100% is, because you used to have, when I was a kid, teenager, I had probably 300-400 acres to hunt, and I might be the only bow hunter on this whole ridge for a mile. And now you've got more, and every time they sell a piece of ground, it gets broken into 3, 4, 5 parcels. So now you've got really small parcels, and you basically, if you want to shoot a deer, you have to make it come to you.
Yeah. But there's let's put it this way. So let me I kind of introduce you. Have you ever listened to like that MFJJ, Josh Jones, Cody Marcher, He runs a podcast with Braden McDonald and then also Tim Connor. He's from out in Washington area, right?
No, I haven't.
So he's talking about baiting. He looks at it this way. He's like, I don't mind baiting because, without it, then you're left with the guys who have a lot of money, who have purchased a lot of land, and they have the money to devote into like actual management of the land, like to food plot and like high end stuff, right? And he's like, so baiting to me is like it's kind of like leveling the playing field out for people, for like the average Joe versus someone, so it's not like the king's deer or something. That's how he kind of looked at it. And I guess I kind of see his point towards that. And once again, I don't have a strong opinion for or against baiting. Like if they took it away, okay, whatever. If they leave it in, it doesn't bother me, right? But I do it, right? It is what it is. Like, I run feeders for the deer, but I just honestly think it's back to instant gratification though. Like, it's back to like, what can I do like right now? What can I do here? What can I do there? But also I can see what MFJJ is saying though. Like it is kind of it doesn't require a crap ton of money to do it. So you don't need to go buy your own property. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on implements to properly manage it. Right. So it is kind of, it's that. And I think it's just one of those necessary evils. Cause I know Michigan now, you're allowed to bait in Michigan now.
Are you really?
You have to buy a tag. You have to buy like an extra license fee that I think you're allowed to bait in Michigan now. Sounds like Tennessee's picking up on that as well. So I don't know. But we talked about it before. People are doing it anyways.
Yeah, it's going to happen regardless. I mean, you're just going to get a ticket for it.
If it's legal or not. Michigan, they were doing it in Michigan. Anybody from Michigan would tell you go to a local store, they're selling bags of corn. You're not supposed to bait, but however they market it, because I guarantee it's not deer corn. They don't market it as deer corn.
But everybody knows that's what they're doing.
That's what it is. Now, as we discussed, I'm not big on telling someone how they need to go about doing something, right? This is another one of those topics, right? It's legal for us to do here in Ohio. Do it, right? You can't do it on public land. You do it on private land. So I'm not big on that debate, right? And I honestly, it hasn't really affected me that much that I'm aware of, right? Some people say it is, but my problem with all that is that when we have a bad year, we don't see the deer that we've seen in the past. We're always looking for the next excuse as to why. And there are some low-lying fruit that we always pick on. And baiting is one of those things, and crossbows is the other. And while some of these things have changed what hunting looks like in Ohio or in anywhere, I don't think they're the outright reason that somebody somewhere is having a bad season. So I don't know, just my hot take on that. Take it or leave it. I don't really care. So this next one, this is the episode with the deer program administrator, Mike Tonkovich. And while we discussed a lot of things from EHD to CWD to deer populations, deer management, a lot of examples of other Midwestern states that was pulled during this. I wanted to focus on this one clip though, because I wasn't ready for this to be, I knew the direction we were going to go with this podcast because I've been talking in this realm for a little bit. And I knew that deer population was one of the big concerns of our Division of Wildlife and our management team. But I wasn't expecting it to be phrased the way that Mike phrased it. And it kind of caught me off guard at first when he said it. And I want to share this clip with you, but basically it starts off with Tonkovich saying that CWD and diseases in general are a distraction to what the real problem is. And that is an exploding deer population. Let's hear from Mike.
Yeah, and Sean, I just gotta, if you have time, if we can talk just a couple more seconds about CWD,
yeah,
because you're saying some things that are really, really important for listeners to hear. let's just I've been at this now for a decade, right? We haven't dealt with it in Ohio for a decade, but it's been on my radar. It's stuff that I eat, sleep, and drink most every single day now. CWD is frustrating because for me it's a distraction, in my opinion, from the real important issue that we really haven't even talked a ton about. We started the conversation at the top of the hour about deer management, but CWD, in my opinion, is a distraction. We're spending way too much time talking about this disease when really, if we address deer populations, we are going to address not only CWD, but we're also going to address a lot of the other things that are problematic with a very, very abundant deer population, which many states are dealing with. And if they're not right now, they can plan on it, because one of the other things that we have yet to talk about is hunter numbers, right? We've been very fortunate here in Ohio. We've been fairly flat the last few years, but prior to that, the decade before that, we lost 20% of our licensed hunters. And I expect this is just a calm before the storm, right? We're going to continue to see hunters leave the sport, and the problem with those that remain, and again, no slighting of hunters whatsoever, but those that remain are less inclined, less interested in harvesting antlerless deer, which means our populations are going to continue to explode, right? So CWD is really not, it's a giant deal, right? It is a big deal. And you said it, there's no silver bullet, but there is one that I guess I might go to bronze, right? Or maybe even some rough iron ore. There is a solution, and it's called deer management. It's called wise and responsible deer management. It's address your deer population, and you're going to address a lot of the CWD. Now, remember, because it doesn't require deer to deer interaction, and deer are wild creatures, thankfully, there's no way that we're ever going to stop CWD completely, because deer move, deer interact, they're social creatures, right? And hunters are killing deer in Arkansas and Kansas and other places, in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and bringing those back to Ohio. And they're depositing them. Some of them are being dropped on the back 40, right? So there's things that we will never be able to control. But if we address deer populations, move off the subject of CWD for just a bit and address deer populations, problem's not solved, but it will give us time to figure out what we can do, in the meantime, whether or not that means going to a commercial venison market, whether it means, we have to, whether it means we just have to live with CWD. But the point is that that's the struggle that I have with CWD, is it's distracting us from the real conversation that needs to be had, and that's deer populations. And the problem is, this is the crux of the problem. First thing a state does when CWD shows up is, let's go in, blazing guns, let's reduce the deer population. Well, what happens is there are all of these other factors that allow CWD to continue to spread, right? So it looks like the deer reduction efforts were pointless. So all of a sudden you're like, well, there's no sense in reducing deer populations. Oh, yes, there is. There's like 14 other reasons why we need to. So that I guess is where, I struggle with this issue of CWD, is that it's distracting us from the real issue at hand. I'm not saying we turn our backs or walk away. Yes, we need to continue to address CWD, and a lot of that is going to be education and talking about why we need to change the way we manage deer, not only in Ohio, but across the Midwest and the Southeast and the New England states. Everyone is dealing with fewer hunters and a lot more deer.
All right. So this isn't the last clip we're going to throw in here, but this is the last one from James, the Scrape Doctor. And this discussion was pulled from an episode that was all about the rewards of the Scrape Doctor system. Basically, the grip and grins, going out, being successful, getting a pattern, using the system to pattern your buck, or maybe even just get an idea of new bucks in the property, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it was that helped you be successful. And this is basically James talking about some success stories. Now, the episode covered several different states, but this clip was specifically about some success that's come from my home state of Ohio. Let's check it out.
And now the big buck states are starting to pop up. I'm starting to get pictures now from places like Missouri and Illinois, Ohio. All these big buck states are starting to roll pictures in now. one real big buck come in out of Missouri, probably in the upper 50s. One out of Illinois in the high 60s. And then Ohio, northwest Ohio, where this 164-inch buck that we just talked about got taken. Okay. That deer, that location in particular, we're going to talk about that. Customer who has since become a very, very good friend, Aaron Blake, and his family, his wife Jackie, his daughter Hannah, and their friend's son Colton, and myself they've been gracious enough to allow me to hunt this area with them. And so Aaron was one of my biggest ha-has at my stuff in the beginning. He foo-fooed me a lot. Go away with that. Get out of here with your witchcraft. Go. So he said, give me one of those and I'll show you how to really use it. So I said, okay. So I gave him one in a bottle of Scrape Magic, and he didn't have it in the woods just a few hours. He called me, wanted to know how he could get as many as possible as fast as I could get him to it. Because they're the greatest thing he's ever used now. Total 360. It's great, right? So fast forward, he gets a really huge buck on camera in one location. He can't close the deal on him, so he's hunting 2 locations at the same time. This is 3 years ago when he first starts using our stuff and running our system. He gets to the other location, ends up just smashing a beautiful buck, right? So he's done. Ohio's obviously one buck. So that year he kills that buck, and I'm not sure what it scored. It was in the upper 140s, maybe even a little over 150.
Nice deer.
The following season comes along. Same deal. He's still got that giant buck in that other location, back and forth hunting both locations. Absolutely just crushes a 9-point in the opposite location again. And this thing, I'm sure you've seen pictures of this one. It's just a monstrous 9-point that's 24 inches wide, I think, or something like that on the inside. So now this location, this Just Rope Squared and Scrape Magic combo location is it's on fire, right? I mean, there are deer there constant. It's continuous. There just never aren't deer in that area in the vicinity of the rope. So now we're into last season, 2024. Aaron says early in the year, he says, dude, this is the year. This is the year that buck is back in there again. He said, and he's got 2 buddies with him that are even bigger. I said, there's no way that they're bigger. Come August, here comes the pictures, and by golly, they're bigger. Way bigger, right? So, again, the other property. Now he's decided to just leave that alone and let it be what it is, not intrude at all. Okay? It's small. I mean, and I agreed with him on this one. Just let it be. You've got something else going on right now. So, this is where Aaron goes in and he sets up a stand. And on this Just a Rope Squared, in 6 days, mature bucks were taken off that stand. An 11-year-old boy named Colton killed a buck out of that stand that's 164 3/8 inches.
You said four, right?
4 mature bucks off one location, yeah, in 6 days. And there was a 5th buck. There was a 5th buck that was on the daylight pattern, and I couldn't get away or couldn't get to it to hunt it. And there was nobody else with a tag. So guess who survived? Now he's back. We just got 2 sets of pictures of him last night. He's back on that rope. He brought his friends with him, girls and boys this time. So you go, this kind of can lead us into, we can put a little filler in with our success stories. We can add a little more context and information to this for people.
So this is where we shift gears a little bit, and we invited Tony Bennett onto the podcast from Red Light Food Plot Seed Company. And this clip is from like the general overall idea behind food plots, where we kind of sprinkled a little bit about everything: micro plots, large plots, screening, everything, right? Prep, all this. And this clip specifically deals, or this is Tony explaining kind of a bird's eye view of how to plan your plots.
Okay. So with that, so I'm going to put you within, I'll put you Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. I'll put you all within that.
Mhm.
So first thing you want to do is you kind of get a layout of your land. So I'm going to ask you most likely, do you know all the deer's travel corridors? Do you know where they bed? Do you know they're going to head out to the big ag fields at night? That's kind of what we call a destination plot. That's where they're all going to end up at night or in the morning, and they're going to travel back in. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we need to cut them off in between those travel routes to come in, grab something to eat before they either A, go to bed, or basically head out for the night, at least hit your plot first to move on forward. So basically come up with an idea. Okay, this is where I want to plot because I know the deer travel through this area, and this is where I want them to stop first before they make their way to the big destination plot. So from there, then we start our work on the ground. You go in there, you go, okay, I have this amount of equipment. Let's just say you got a 4-wheeler, some saw, something. We can open up this amount of area. And then we go, okay, we're going to test the soil. And that is the number one thing I see with almost every single plot. Everybody either says, I have great soil, or this soil's been farmed before and all that. You never know what's in that dirt. Absolutely. Without testing, you have no idea what the pH levels are, what the nutrition is in there. And then basically, once that soil test tells us what we need to get the ground where we need it, that's where we can start planning on, hey, maybe we try grains in the spot, start building some organic matter up a little bit. Then we're going to start jumping up into the brassicas, maybe some clovers. Being a bull hunter, clover is more of a protein that deer are going to want to hit first in the year more than later on in the year because of the winter months and getting cold, and they're adding fat to the bodies and everything. So clover is a hot ticket item for that early season. So that's going to be a go-to. So let's say Lee build maybe a couple, half-acre clover plots on their way out to these either stand set up too, because you got to play the wind too for where these deer are set up. So setting up maybe a couple half-acre clover plots, something along that line, so you can cut them off, have them drawn to one place before they head out, and that'll give you probably the best opportunity you can have there on that in a food plot aspect. So it's building the plan on what you're looking for. Now, if you were telling me we're going to hunt over these plots, I want a big, I want to build the herd up in a sense. I want to bring, more fawns on the ground because we need more deer. Then, yeah, maybe we need to do a mixture of, in the wintertime, maybe there's not enough food around there. So we're going to really have to put some food out there for them per se. So, and really keep them bulked up over winter. And then in the springtime, when the fawns are dropping, maybe do some type of alfalfa or clover mix, really boost the protein up to build those deer up all summer long, build the fawns up, make sure the milk's good in the does, help the bucks out, cause they're looking for protein and calcium and all that stuff to get their antlers going. And because they just went through Michigan. We have some pretty harsh winters, so they're not nice on the deers. In Ohio, it might be a little different.
Depends.
Yeah, but depends. It's based on what you're looking for what you want to do for your property. So, but those are kind of a few ideas. I want to learn your hunting property because everybody's property is different. So, and that's the biggest thing. So the food plot things that comes along with the whole deal. But if you can really get a good idea of what you're looking for and what you're capable of doing, that's when the real action then starts after that.
So this next episode, we invited a gentleman from Tennessee onto the podcast. His name is Sean Ingram, and he runs a website called Hunt Trap TN, where He runs some merchandise off of it, but one of the neat things he does is a digital hunt planning that you pay for it. There's different levels of it, right? But basically the one level is $100 and you give him an area and you sit down virtually with Sean and his team and they create a hunt plan for you or the area that you're trying to go to. Really neat idea. And so we brought him on the podcast. We discussed a lot about that and several other things, because he's an Alabama boy that moved to Tennessee. And we talked a lot about, the differences in hunting strategies between Alabama versus Tennessee, which he's on the eastern side where there's mountains now. So that a whole other dynamic for him. But he's also been part of the social media world for a while, and he writes blogs and he's done a few articles and stuff. So he had a lot of good insights when it comes to like growing a brand that way. And one of the things we discussed in the podcast, and the reason it was brought up is because if you get on TikTok and you are a creator or you make a few reels here and there and you share them on TikTok or you share them on Instagram, eventually you're going to get hit with a promotional ad where they say, hey, if you give us $20, we will guarantee you to have 18,000 views for this video. And that's what kind of sparked this topic between him and I. And I think we both agreed that while that might get views, it's not going to help your channel grow or your TikTok page or your profile grow or whatever it is you want to call it, because most of those views are people that really don't give two shits about what you're doing. Organic growth is what leads to long-lasting success.
What I have learned, Sean, is when it comes to, and I guess we're kind of switching gears a little bit, talking business.
Just a little bit. We'll come back.
But I mean, as far as internet marketing goes, you can do the ads to get traffic, but that traffic doesn't stay around. The organic traffic that you do, the relationship building that you do, that's what sticks around. That's what grows your business. These clicks that you get on TikTok and that type thing, they're not going to go back and talk about your product. They're not going to, that where you're going to build the relationships is organically and slowly. It's not anybody that tells you that the internet is whether it be a blog, whether it be a podcast, whether, whatever, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's relationship building. And that's what a lot of people, like you said, they try it for a year and they put all this money into ads and crap like that, and it doesn't work for them, and then they're gone. So I think I did Facebook ads when I first started the Facebook page, just to build traction and to gain followers. And I think I only did it for a month just to build up my following. And I was very specific when I marketed it. I said, I want hunters, I want outdoorsmen, I want fishermen, I want these specific people. I don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and then after that, I was done. Everything that I've done thus far has been organic. TikTok is a great tool, but I don't think that you need to spend money on it. You just need to spend time on it. That's the big thing. And it all goes back again to, just like I said, helping people, giving value to people.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off what you said, and that if you are in it to make money, like, it's going to come across as that, and there's not going to be any authenticity. Whenever this is your only sole purpose, is I'm here to make money, and it's going to show eventually. Like, it is going to show. If you're not here, it's the public service mindset, and it's a few others. Like, if you're not here for the right reasons, you're going to fail really quick, and you're going to be sniffed out. I agree with you 100%. Like, would I love to see this grow up and to be, some type of a revenue source to where it's not me just I don't throw a lot of money at it, but it's an expenditure for me right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's no revenue generated by what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that. I'm not saying that I need it now. That's not what I want. My goal, like I said, is this is my opportunity to reach people who I may never even talk to before, to talk to people, to connect people, and just to continue that kind of inner mission, that inner why that I do, that I need to do. It is why this is for. And if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. If not, hey, you know what? I'll have fun sitting here looking at my computer screen and talking to myself for as long as I need to. So
Exactly.
but man, I'm glad you took the time to sit down and talk with us today. And we're not done yet, but I just wanted to just get that out there and just let you know, I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. For this next one, we brought Tony back into the studio virtually. And in this clip, we are talking about how you can create the trifecta of food, water, and a communication. And by doing that, you've created the new hot bar in town that everybody's coming to. Let's hear from Tony about the new hotspot. So if I was going to give a good metaphor for a micro plot, if you do the trifecta, as we call it, so you give the communication, you've got water, and you got food there. You've got the brand new hotspot in town that all the big people are going to go to, all the big names are showing up to, because it's new, it's hot, it's happening. They get their social life taken care of. They got their food and their drink and their beverages done and on spot.
And
It's the brand new gastropub for you people out there.
Yep.
that
Yep.
enjoy the kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's funny. It's funny I keep relating back to bar scenes though. Right?
Yeah, that's what I joke. It's like the local bar though, isn't it? Because everybody's going there to eat and drink and then socialize. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. A microplot is the local town bar, man. It
And
is. And that's where all the cool people hang out. So that's where the Bucks want to be, and the Does, and oh yeah.
If you plan it right, you're gonna have the hot spot. If you did something wrong or planned it wrong, well, you're gonna have that dead bar off.
Yep. You're gonna fail, essentially. Your business will fail. So yeah, if you don't put the effort into it. So
And I think that's a good way to leave it off. And thank you for bringing up the next episode that we're to give a little tease to everybody. Give a little tease to everybody. Like, yeah, stay tuned, because we got more to come, and we're going to be talking about those destination plots, I think, in the next episode, and getting a little bit more. I was going to talk a little bit about screening today with the micro plot and see if that was something, but I wanted to kind of hold off until we get to that part. So
screening, there's a lot to screening and cover. There's a lot to it, and that a lot of people don't think about all the different aspects of why you would want to screen, and why, do I need to cover my routes versus, why do I need to build a bedding area for a deer? And there's screening's its own even unique type of plot. Now, it's not a food plot, but it's more or less a plot of, travel corridors you can do, and there's designs and how to do things correctly. So there's a lot to screening and cover. So, and destination plots, and we got plenty more we got to cover. So
we got a lot more to cover. So that means, folks, make sure you stay tuned, because we're not done with Tony. Tony will be coming back in some future episodes. But Tony, let's go ahead and close this one out. Is there anything that we've not covered that you want to get out there?
I don't know.
In a microplots. He's like, there's
we
so
just
much.
Need local small time bars. That's all we need. Build your own local small town bar, and we'll do that.
And make it the hot spot, right? We want all the does to come here, so we can attract the big bucks. So we're, think of it that way. Like, what bar do most men go to?
Where all the ladies are going, right?
Where the ladies are going.
So, yep.
Make sure you get that place set up for them. Give them a little dance floor there.
Yep, you got it all set up, man.
A communication hub, some water. I guess just a quick recap of everything we just talked about today. So we, number one is planning, and where you want this microplot or microplots to go. So some things to consider obviously is location. We need to be close to deer and where deer are traveling to, right? We also need to have a place that's going to get sunlight, or at least sufficient sunlight that is going to help the plants germinate and grow, right? The next part is we want to find a place that we can work the soil. Now, by working the soil, that means we can just go in there and scratch it up. But we also want to make sure that the soil is going to be good exposed, but we also want to make sure the soil is going to be good when it comes to pH level, to help make sure that those plants can obtain all the nutrition they can to help them grow, and then provide that nutrition to the deer, and the other animals. I mean, it's not just deer. I mean, we could talk a lot about other animals that can
Yep.
benefit from this, but obviously we're talking about deer. Like, let's be honest, that's the money maker for most states in this area is deer, right? That's part of it. It's not just go out there and throw the stuff down. So make sure your soil is ready. So if you're hearing this now, maybe it's a chance for you to go out, find that spot, get that line down, get that started, so that when you go to plant, it's ready for you. It's ready for you next year, for the next season. Outside of that, we talked about creating that trifecta. So that we're making that hot local bar scene. So we need food, we need communication, we need some water, right?
Water.
We need that drink, the drink you drank for the animals.
Yep.
So, man, but I think that's setting up a pretty good idea of what people should look for microplots. So this next clip, this is from Adam Bingham. And I met Adam several years ago with James at the, what do they call it? The Open Season Sportsman's Expo, which a few shows across the country, but I met him down in Columbus, Ohio a couple years ago. That's how I got started using the Scrape Doctor products and getting a little bit more serious about using mock scrapes. And Adam is one of the front runners of it. And Adam was a story that was shared by James during the rewards episode. And I felt, and Adam felt, and James felt, we all felt that it was a good idea that Adam come on and tell his story himself. So this is a clip from there where we get to see the year amount of the buck and him starting to tell the story of a buck that disappeared every year, but he finally got one photo of the deer back on the property during hunting season, and how he miraculously had made a move to get in on this buck.
Okay, now my wife, in order to keep order, she don't mind it, but she decorated him. Okay,
Oh, that's gorgeous. Look at that deer, man. He's a dandy.
I'm proud of him. I really, truly am.
I would be. He's a darn good deer.
I mean, yeah.
He's good symmetrical too. What is he? Let me see. Is he in?
He was a 9 at one point,
Okay.
but it got broke off. So yeah, he's a nice 8.
Yeah, he's pretty real symmetrical. I bet you if you ever do get him scored, I bet you he'll score pretty well.
Yeah, I don't have a clue, man. I'm proud of him.
And like I said, I'm not a score guy, but if you ever decided to do it, I bet you he would score pretty well.
Here's how I always knew it was him. If you look at his rack, see how the back of his rack is?
Yeah.
That's how I always knew anytime I got a picture of a video.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got pictures, like I said, all the way back 2014. And I literally will, if I see a deer this year, a buck this year, I am looking last year to see that buck. Oh man, he's got white across his nose here, or right here, or he's got a white hoof. Okay, cool. So I mean, I am. If somebody shoots a deer on the farm, I'm like, hang on 1 second, I've got that here. Let me send you that picture. Let me see. And I'll have 2-3 years of pictures. That deer, 3 years, and he was on that other side of the farm that I told you I had one of the ropes on, and never hunted him. Got pictures, got videos of him in June, July, August, September, October. And he disappeared. And then he would show back up next year, do the same thing. 24, I have pictures of him May, June, July, August, September, first part of October, he disappeared. And me and James, we send videos back and forth and pictures all day long. You know what I mean? Anytime I get one, hey, check this out. Check this video out. Check this, One morning I had him in my food plot. I'm like, man, look at this. And he was just wearing that poison ivy out. And then we lost him. And I was like, man, and I did. I ain't gonna lie, I asked some of the neighbors, because I knew he disappeared, but it was just kind of weird. It just seemed like a different part of the year. But our woods is so thick that there's places you can't see 20 yards in there. And it's big woods. So, he could be hiding anywhere. You're not going to see him. November the 27th, I think it was, he popped up in a video on a poison ivy that he always hit. He hit it, and then this other buck that was a 10-point, a little bigger than him, hit it, and he destroyed that poison ivy. I mean, he was there.
This next clip comes from our Destination Plot episode with Tony Bennett, and we're talking large food plots here, big plots, right? And Tony, this clip is Tony explaining how to design your large plot. And I guess the most logical place to start is, how would you define, or what would you define a large plot as?
So large plot to me and myself is anything over an acre, because you're going to start to get into more area. Obviously, you need more area due to either the deer population, or you're looking to set up something for, carrying them through the winter, making sure they have all the nutrients they need to survive the winter. Up here in Michigan, it gets pretty scarce as you head up more to the northern part of Michigan. There's not a lot of ag up that way, so that's kind of the result of what they're doing up there, is making larger plots just to, draw the deer in. It's going to provide like much more nutritional advantage to the deer, increases the deer activity to that area. There's just a lot of, winters are harsh up here too. So providing that food source, giving them enough food to carry them into the springtime then. So for fawning and, the bucks to make it through the rut there. So there's quite a few advantages to having a larger plot. So, and those kind of like main keys right there is just nutrients, carrying them through, helping with survival. Big draws too. So for areas that are scarce without ag. So
yeah, I would see that there'd be some advantages with a large plot, especially in an area without ag. So here in Ohio, at least in our area, both farms that I hunt have some type of ag that's going around them. The one farm, they lease a little bit of, when I say lease, they don't like lease hunting, but they have someone that pays them to come out and farm. And they usually do like a few strips of soybeans and stuff. Nothing I think that's actually going to maintain an actual herd of deer, but they do have some. So that one's more one I think food plotting might be a good, a larger plot might work better, especially to keep it going year round. The other farm though, we got full on crop rotation happening, but it's corn and then it's soybeans, then it's corn, then it's soybeans, then it's corn, then it's soybeans on both sides. And the funny thing is, they're never the same crop on both sides, because think of it like a sandwich. Like you have, one crop is the top part of the bread, and then our farm that's your meat and cheese and all that there, and then you got the little bottom piece of bread on the other side. So the top and the bottom piece of bread are never the same. One dry, one sourdough. I mean, it's always it's always changed. It's never the same one on both ways there. So it helps us a little bit because we have that big food source there for the deer that will maintain them, because some of them they wait till late to
cut them down
to harvest, right?
It. Yep.
But even then, like, you're not getting all of it. There's always remnants left behind, when they go through with the combines and stuff to collect those, or if they come in and try to make silage wire, there's always stuff left over. So for us now, this one farm that's covered on both sides, there is a large ag going on with clover there. So there is a farmer that comes in that he did sorghum for a while, and then now he's doing clover, and he just let the clover go again this year. So he's been cutting it for hay for his cattle. So that helps us out a lot. But I can see the need, because in those during the winter, the deer are in that clover field like crazy, like they all aggregate right there. And this is later, because I'm assuming that most of and this will probably be a point you're going to talk about too, when it comes to those ag fields, why it might be important, even though you might be surrounded by ag, to do a large plot, is because eventually those remnants is going to run out. Like whatever's left behind, the deer are going to eat them. The deer, the turkey, the birds, everything's going to get ate up eventually, right? Because that's the limited source. That's basically, it's the same. You went out, dumped corn, and then left. And
Exactly.
once it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone. Yep.
But as soon as winter hits and those remnants are gone, right, or very slim pickings, they're right into that. They're right into that clover, and they're digging. We don't get the amount of snow that northern Michigan gets. I will be very honest with you. Like, we get a foot. That could be the worst we get.
Yeah.
Right?
We get feet.
You guys measure by the yard. We measure it by the inch.
Yeah.
But they'll be they'll dig down that foot or so in through the snow to get to that clovers. I mean, I see that even though we don't maintain that as a food plot, it works. Where having that large food plot and stuff would be beneficial. So I know I talked a lot, and I gave you a lot to unpack there, because we started to talk a lot about what a large plot is, and then you started to go down the road a little bit of why it's beneficial. Well, everyone, that's going to conclude all of the clips that I had selected for this episode. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this compilation of some of the highlights of season 2. And if this does really well, we'll probably do it again for next holiday season while we're all trying to take a break and enjoy some family time and get recentered and refocused and come back strong for season 3, which will be season 4 next year. We'll be up and running again after the first of the year. So stick with us. We'll be back. But we really do hope you guys enjoy this time and with your friends, your family. And since we are here to talk about gratitude, we're grateful for those of you who follow the show, who share the show and like the show. And we really are looking forward to more growth in season 3. I got to say that I'm very grateful that I get an opportunity to do these things. That I'm very grateful for my family. I'm very grateful for my wife, who is very understanding of the hobbies that I've taken on. And some of them can be very time consuming, especially this time of year. So I'm very gracious. I'm very grateful to have that type of support in my life. But, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to wrap this up. We are coming to an end of this episode and end of season 2. Hard to believe. 2 years now that we've been posting episodes and getting ready to start year number 3. So with that being said, I can't thank everyone enough for being a part of it. I can't thank the guests enough. Like, if you guys hear this, thank you again for being a part of it. And it's people like you that help people like me or shows like this to grow and continue on. And your contribution to not only the show but to the culture in general has not gone unnoticed, at least not by me. And I'm very thankful for each and every one of you guys and gals who take time out of your day to sit and talk to my little squirrely ass. Hey, guy, thank you. I really do mean it. Thank you. Well, I think it's time we put a bow on this one. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of y'all. I really do. And I feel bad when I keep asking and hounding about this, but it really helps this show, like all the other shows that are out there, if you would give us a thumbs up, a like, a rating, a review, a comment, and share the show with your friends. And if you're new to this, you can hear the audio version of the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. And the video feed will appear in both Spotify and also YouTube. You can also hear the audio version on YouTube as well. If you need a little bit more of the Country Fried folks in your life, well, check us out on TikTok and Instagram. There's a Facebook page, but don't look that up. No one checks it. Ask people who tried to talk to us on there. I promise you, we're not buttholes. We just don't check that. So if you really want to get with us, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Those are the three main locations that you're going to find us on the social media world outside of the podcast. So Instagram, it's Country Fried Outdoors. So, and it's the same thing on TikTok and the YouTube. It's Country Fried Outdoor Productions. Go follow us there. Give us a like on the content there and share it with your friends, as always. But once again, folks, I'm very appreciative that you spent the last bit of your time with us here on this episode as we close out season 2. But until our experiences cross paths again, may you have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there. And as little tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone. Merry Christmas, everybody. You think we're going to get copyright striked on that one? Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.